ETFs are getting improved is a good sign. We typically tend to trail the US in a lot of these things, but the fact that we're getting it so soon after the US got theirs is a good sign.
That is huge. CZ's sitting in jail, and apparently he's pretty much close to double his net worth while he's in there. He's currently worth $61 billion.
It'll be interesting to see how sort of BNB goes this cycle. I guess they've got that huge competitor in Solana, which seems to be taking most of the activity in that realm. G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of Tab Into Crypto. My name's Ted and I'm joined by a bit of a fresh face this week. We're joined by Chris Vanek because Pav or Tommy couldn't join us. So Chris, you've blessed us with your presence.
Yeah, filling some big shoes, big feet, big shoes from Pav. So exciting.
Okay. And Chris, you're pretty involved in the crypto market. So what juicy insights have you got for us this week?
Well, we got pretty big buy pressure, it looks like, at the moment. Looks like we have 75% of buys over to sells. We just finished seeing that $9 billion from Mt. Gox, triggering some excitement in the market from just the end of last month, which was pretty cool. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing what kind of effect that has over the market over the next 30 days and 60 days from here. But, you know, potentially has already caused a little bit of selling pressure starting to ramp up.
Mate, I've never heard you sound so boring. Where's the fun, exciting Chris Vanek that always has the juicy insights on what shitcoins pumping next? And mate, I don't know what that was you just did then, but okay, so break it down. So Bitcoin's at about 68K. We kind of dumped from last week. Any particular reason for that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think we definitely I think if you can bring up those Bitcoin ETF flows, we definitely saw. Yeah, here we go. So we definitely had the last, 5-6 days. We've started having some pretty big sell-off happening from the 10th to the 14th, it looks like. So that's absolutely going to have some effects on the market.
Yeah.
And get people panic selling coming out of the 14th into the start of this week anyway, or at least from the end of last week. So that's definitely going to be a catalyst.
Yeah, I think that's for sure contributing to this recent sell-off. Like you said, at 4 out of the 5 days last week, we're in the red. Like we saw outflows of 189 million on Friday. Before that, 226 million after what was a pretty strong, week and a half.
Yeah.
So it seems like a bit more FUD is in the market, fear, uncertainty, doubt. You also mentioned the Mt. Gox selling off a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. The end of last month, I think it was the first time in 5 years that we had. First time in 5 years that the wallet started moving again. So it was $9 billion shifted out to a range of wallets. So that's just gonna cause people to be uncertain from what's exactly going to happen with inflows and outflows. And so a little bit panicked coming out of that. I mean, look, they almost recovered on the 12th, which was a bit strange that it had a little bit of a turnaround and then dumped again really heavily on the 13th and the 14th. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, so to break that down, for anyone that doesn't know, Mt. Gox was one of the first sort of big exchanges to... Yeah. It was basically what everyone used back in 2014, who were buying, trading, and using Bitcoin. And then they got hacked. All the people that held Bitcoin on their exchange basically lost all their funds. And it's taken 10 years to kind of for some of those lost funds or to be recovered. And so now people are just getting sent all this Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
And obviously it's at a higher price than it was back in 2014, so they're starting to sell off. I don't know what the selling off schedule is, and like if it's I'm assuming it's a tiered sort of thing, but I haven't looked into it too much. But yeah, that's been one of the catalysts for, especially this year, for why we could potentially have some downward movement before we, really take it up the next leg. Altcoins. Me and Pav spoke about altcoins last week and how they've kind of been underperforming, especially, we typically see Bitcoin move and then people start to get a little bit more greedy, start to look at which altcoins are going to make them, a billionaire overnight. But they haven't really been doing too much. In fact, there's been a lot of red in the market. So we've got this chart up here. The altcoin market with this chart is looking at others versus BTC. So it's basically any altcoin outside the top 10. It's at a price now. It's at a level now where it's the same as when it was in October 23. We think about sort of 2024 as being a pretty good market or a pretty good sort of year for crypto thus far. But the fact is, like, altcoins haven't really been doing much and are even down to sort of Q3, Q4 levels 2023. So it's kind of just Bitcoin that's been leading the way.
Even the Solana, meme coin train has started to slow a little bit as well at the moment. So, everything's on a little bit of a lull. Yeah. Pretty big sea of red.
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
This point, oh wow.
Like as you can see here from the crypto bubbles that we're looking at, it's basically a sea of red, like you said it, Chris. So there's a handful. I mean, this is probably top 100 altcoins. There's a handful in the green, Uniswap and Lido DAO. A bit of a ETH narrative to be playing out there, it looks like. But other than that, it's all red. Like some of the biggest losers this week are Wormhole, Akash, Audi. So some of those ones that had big gains last week have pretty much just
famous Floki on a pretty big hit, on a 30% dip.
Yeah, because there's not much to talk about in terms of altcoins. Like they're all kind of just getting wiped away. Like there's not. Dull. Yeah, I wanted to introduce a bit of a new segment, and I don't know how Pav's going to feel about this. It takes 1 week off, and I'm just chucking in new segments. Pav's pretty, He's
a sensitive guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he'll be listening to us right now, probably crying. Knowing Pav. Discovering Alpha is the name of this new segment. And I thought, a bit of a segment where we scour the internet and, there's so much just useless info, so many so-called experts on crypto on the internet. And we're going to try and break it all down and try and find some actual pieces of decent insight into the market, or what we like to call Alpha. Cool. So first one we've got is... So Aptos, this took me by surprise actually, because Aptos is one that kind of, it had some pretty strong performance when it launched and then gone a bit quiet like that. The likes of Sui and Say all kind of recently launched layer ones, but haven't been, capturing too much attention in the last sort of 6 months. But this one was interesting. So an Aptos user tweeted, one day Aptos will be able to power the New York Stock Exchange with high-speed, auditable open trading platform. And then the CEO of Aptos just, retweeted and said, when, not if. So, maybe not too much to dig in here, but there is a bit more info to potentially back up that this could be happening soon. So Aptos, the CEO that I just mentioned, he actually used to work at BlackRock. BlackRock, we always talk about being the largest asset manager in the world. They're looking to get more into the tokenized asset space. And they're also launching their own stock exchange to rival the New York Stock Exchange. And in order to, support the sort of tokenization side of things, they need like a fast, almost instant blockchain to be able to deliver that finality. And there's a lot of speculation that Aptos is going to be their go-to, given their existing relations with the CEO and everything. And the fact that, the tech is just outstanding and going to be able to deliver what BlackRock is after, unlike, a very sort of legacy chain like Ethereum that has great security, but the scalability just isn't there. So like they're going to go with a newer, bit more, bit quicker lock.
Will take a lot to be able to move it. I mean, Aptos pushing hard into that real world asset space. There's a lot of groups pushing down there. The discussion around real world assets really hasn't slowed down. I mean, it's always been one of the major, one of the feature sets of blockchain is being able to tokenize real world assets. And that conversation, even in Australia, has been really, really strong, even in government. And there's projects that the government currently funds that they do in the real world asset space. It'll be curious to see how aggressive this actually gets and how serious Aptos is about pushing into this area. But exciting project.
Just to kind of reiterate on this point, so Aptos actually forged a bit of a partnership with Ondo Finance. They're probably the leader in the RWA space in crypto. That was announced in April, which I actually missed. But this just goes to show that Aptos are really choosing their niche. Like we've talked about before, where like these layer ones just can't be, they've got to stand out by going down like a niche. Unless you're Ethereum or Solana, you've got to pick a niche. Like we've seen Peak, they're going down the DPN niche. We're seeing Sui potentially and AVAX being more of a gaming-focused layer one. And Aptos could really find their niche in the real-world asset space, and that's kind of looks like what is playing out currently. But look, another tweet that we found here is basically the state of L1 coins.
So L1s.
The theme of today is L1s, so we thought we'd stick with that. So this is an image or a screenshot that breaks down sort of where all the current L1s are in the last 30 days in a number of metrics. So the metrics here are price, total value locked, token trading volume, fees, and daily active users. And you'll listed here are, Aptos, like we just spoke about, Internet Computer, Say, Sui, Solana, Avalanche, Near Protocol, Ethereum, like a lot of the ones we've talked about recently. But some haven't been performing. Like Mint have constantly, well, not constantly, but we often talk about Say as being, one where we kind of eye off and one that I personally hold. But that's actually performing the worst in the last 30 days on these metrics. So it's actually seeing, negative growth in a lot of these areas like price, total value locked, token trading volume, and fees.
It's wild looking at like say Sui's like daily active user growth is absolutely absurd. ETH user growth dropping by 70% of daily active users over a 30-day period. Super interesting. Brings in the conversation again, Solana versus ETH conversation. Which just gets stirred up by that as well. Like, it's just a very aggressive game that everyone is trying to compete in with hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars being punched into these.
No, absolutely.
Into these networks.
Absolutely.
And they're bigger than that, right? They're like the whole ecosystems.
Yeah. So looking at this holistically, you could probably say that Solana's fared the best in the last 30 days. Like they've seen growth across 4 out of the 5 metrics. That's more than any of the others. Seeing a lot of growth in total value locked as well as price. And then, like you said, Sui's seeing ridiculous growth in the daily active user metrics. So they've seen over 3,000% growth in that space. Say is looking okay there as well, 386% growth. But look, it's interesting. Like ETH had the highest price growth in the last 30 days, likely because of the ETH ETF. That obviously helped. Say had the highest new supply emission. And then what else we got? Internet Computer had the highest fees growth. So obviously a lot of these networks make money from fees. So the fact that Internet Computer is seeing fee growth.
Yeah, I wonder if that's due to, they had a 4% increase in the daily active users, but they had a 94% increase in their fees. So I don't know if they released an update to their blockchain where that makes a difference on the fees that they like the amount or the cost.
I mean, it could be like an increase in number of transactions, or not just like daily active users, but also like what those users are doing day to day.
That's right. And some of these L1s have investors as well, which is probably pretty important to remember as well, right? And some of these have different objectives for their shareholders, which opens and begs other questions around the transparency and actual objectives towards some of these L1s. So that's something we've really got to keep in the back of our mind as well when we're just comparing these raw metrics to each other. Yeah,
no, absolutely. So if you want to take a look at that, we'll chuck it in the show notes. Also, if you want to take a look at what we're looking at, you can also check out our YouTube channel. But that kind of wraps up that segment for today.
The old alpha.
Discovering alpha. I guess we'll have to wait and see what Pav thought of it to find out whether we can do it again.
We can do the discovering beta next week.
When Pav's back, ideally. But look, let's dive into some news headlines. Chris, what do you got for us? You got a story here about the ASX.
Well, my last name is Vanek, so ETF by Vanek on the ASX. Pretty exciting. It was only announced was that today or yesterday? Today? Yeah, today.
It's launching this week, but it was announced end of last week. So
there we go. There we go.
It's the first spot Bitcoin product or spot crypto ETF that is launched on the ASX. A couple of weeks ago, we spoke about who was at Monochrome, who launched on CBOE, which is another stock exchange available in Australia. But this, everyone knows the ASX is sort of our native stock exchange.
Really, the mainstream that's at least most common in everyone's,
Exactly, yeah. And obviously Vanek being one of those other huge asset managers globally, they've got good relationships with the ASX, so they naturally got approved. What do you make of this? Chris?
Well, look, there was a huge stat given. I think it was in this article. I think it said that 33% of financial advisors would add a Bitcoin ETF to their clients' portfolios if it was available on the ASX. Now, there's obviously more complexities around financial advisors on what they do and how they can offer it, and the regulation that goes in behind that, and their risk levels and tolerances. But it's exciting to see at least the sentiment behind it. Is really, really strong for a move like this, and great for Australia and great for Australian adoption, considering we only see, I think the number we last have is 3.5 million Australians invested into crypto, which is pretty exciting. And this year, just under 4 million expected to get invested.
Is that 4 million new
in the next 12 months? 4 million Australians.
New users that haven't touched crypto
haven't touched crypto before.
So interesting.
If the survey data is accurate, there's so much opportunity, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're coming in through exchanges. They could absolutely come in through, or through crypto exchanges, I should say. They could absolutely come in through an ETF, or
a more traditional route,
traditional route, exactly. Yeah. So there's definitely, I think it's absolutely great for crypto adoption in Australia. Something that we're pushing considerably and continually.
Yeah. No, it's good to see, because Australia is, I guess, if you look at it from a net perspective, probably net positive on crypto. So the fact that, ETFs are getting improved is a good sign. We typically tend to trail the US in a lot of these things. But the fact that we're getting it so soon after the US got theirs is a good sign.
Yeah.
And then, I guess it will only be a matter of time before we see more regulation come into the Australian space. Obviously, we work in crypto, so
that's right,
it affects us directly. But overall, I think what the regulators in Australia are doing is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And space. I mean, we know now that there's 8 million Australians that reject crypto, and that's adult Australians. I think the younger population in general is more inclined to accept it and adopt it, which I think is just a huge win.
Yeah,
in
but
the adoption of
that number's getting smaller and smaller. If I asked you that 4 years ago, what that number would be, or if we conducted a survey, I'm sure it would be a lot higher. And then
absolutely.
Same thing. You look forward 4 years where that is.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. What do we got next?
This is the real headliner. This is the real headliner.
This is more on your wavelength, Chris. What do you got for us?
I did ask today if they were dating.
Yes.
But I just want to clarify.
Give some context to what you're talking about.
Iggy and Andrew are not dating. And that's probably the biggest read of this room. But outside of that, Iggy Azalea has the old mother token, and Andrew Tate is promoting his daddy token. Yeah. And together nothing. But they both have these two assets which are just absolute celebrity, pump assets. They have no real intrinsic value in the market, but going to have big movements. They both have massive followings. Andrew Tate obviously has a ginormous following globally, which is going to influence the price of this asset.
Yep.
So I'm really curious to see what he does personally about promoting this token, if he becomes a bit of a Elon Musk scenario with him spiking the price. Also, what that does in terms of, price and market manipulation, that's just another conversation entirely. I mean, outside of that, so
nothing really surprises me anymore, right?
Yeah.
I know combined these assets have almost $400 million in market cap. I think Andrew Tate's just leading the Iggy mother token, but this got so big that Vitalik got involved. So Vitalik Buterin, who's one of the founders of Ethereum, he actually tweeted out that he's very against sort of these celebrity led tokens. Possibly because the Iggy Azalea token was on the Solana network, a bit of a competitor there. But then Iggy Azalea just jumped on this train, tweeting a photo of her breastfeeding Vitalik Buterin, and it's just crypto.
At least it'll make the history books.
Yeah. It's a funny one to laugh at because, it's just nothing surprises us anymore. But also what is interesting for me in this current market is we did sort of see the celebrity involvement in the last bull market where, towards the end we saw celebrities launching their own NFTs and saying, I'm on this, I'm promoting this project and this. We hadn't really seen it until just recently, which I thought was interesting because Bitcoin's been teetering for a while. We did see it hit new all-time highs, but since then it hasn't been too exciting. And so the fact that celebrities are already getting into it, it's a bit of I don't like to call it a top indicator yet, but it's one of those things that you refer to as toppy. And often these things need to get wiped out before we have our next leg up. But who knows? It's just speculation at this point. I'm sure Iggy and Andrew are just in it to, make a quick buck and make a few of them as well. Now, this is something that you told me today. I had no idea about it. Chris, what do you got?
That is huge. CZ's sitting in jail, and apparently he's pretty much close to doubled his net worth while he's in there. And apparently total net worth now. I'm not sure how much percentage of this is because of the, recent market movements that we've had. But he's currently worth $61 billion.
Okay.
24th richest person in the world.
Chris, you're getting too excited and diving straight into the story. Who is CZ for anyone that doesn't know?
Oh, CZ. Yeah, he's no longer the head of Binance, but he was the ex-CEO of Binance.
And founder,
and founder for, I'm sure it's been covered, which he's unfortunately been... had 3 months, which was originally looking at 3 years of being in prison for some of the
misdoings,
and some of his actions that were taken across Binance, unfortunately, but and in the wider market. But all hail to Binance. They have a new CEO and they're on the right path, and doing a whole lot globally around what they're doing around AML, KYC, and legislation work that they're doing, and working with governments all around the world to make that happen, and regulators. But it's just the story in itself. What I think was really interesting, that this put a highlight on BNB's circulating supply. They believe that CZ owns 64% of all the circulating supply
of BNB. That's crazy.
That is crazy. Anything else would be considered, like, if you bought into a new Solana meme coin that 64% was held under one wallet, you'd assume it's a rug, or you wouldn't invest in it because it would be a huge red flag. It's really interesting. The price of this has hit up to 500, almost 600 USD.
If I was holding BNB, I'd be taking a long hard look at that and being, if that's true, and I'd just be saying, like, this is not, like, because for it to be considered like a decentralized asset, it needs to be truly decentralized. And for the fact that one guy holds 64% of the circulating supply and could theoretically dump on everyone when he wanted to, I'm sure he'd get arrested and be sent to jail for life.
Not to mention, even outside of that, the rest of the circulating supply, I believe that there's a huge amount given to the original founders of Binance as well, outside of CZ well. So potentially even more of the circulating supply is owned by not only CZ but the other Binance founders and by Binance itself. So an interesting one to watch for certain.
And as this news has come out, BNB also hit an all-time high recently. So
wow, okay. What's the price sitting at the moment?
I don't know. What are we at? BNB is at $605 US, so almost $1.5 billion market cap. Currently sitting above Solana in terms of market cap.
I wonder what pushed it, because they often do their quarterly burns, their token burns, so it might have been that pushed it a little bit further, but very exciting. Okay, cool.
Yeah, BNB absolutely skyrocketed last bull market because everyone was using the Binance Smart Chain, and everyone was doing Binance Smart Chain was kind of like the Solana of this cycle, where everyone was doing their dirty shitcoin trading on that, or any like new projects could launch, and it was quick, it was easy to use. Solana's kind of filled that gap whilst also filling other roles in the market. They're not just like a chain for people doing shitcoins and things like that. Absolutely. But it'll be interesting to see how sort of BNB goes this cycle, given that, I guess they've got that huge competitor in Solana, which seems to be taking most of the activity in that realm. Absolutely. Well, let's hope that circulating supply is legitimate. Otherwise, it's going to need a little bit more soap. Well, let's do this. But we might wrap it up there. We've covered off on a few news headlines and obviously did the new alpha section. So let us know what you think of this episode. Let us know if you want to see Chris back on the pod. Personally, I do not, but I'll leave it up to the audience. No, I love being here with Ted's remarks. It's probably one of the most enjoyable 30 minutes of my life. Yeah, thanks. Of course. I'm always like just pumping your tires, man. But look, one thing to sign off with is Swyftx has just launched its new media campaign with a new TV ad to go along with it. It's been a lot of work in the background going towards this. Chris, I know you've been very involved in it, so do you want to give us a quick... Yep, look, it's absolutely... We're running the campaign. It will go live as of tomorrow, I believe. It'll be across many video channels. It'll be across Binge. It'll be across KO, Fox, so keep an eye out for it. We have 3 different... TV commercials that'll actually play, but a massive shout out to Daniel, who actually sets up this podcast and organizes a lot of the technical setup for this. So big shout out to him, who he not only directed but also has edited all of them, and so absolutely phenomenal job. So get ready. We'll link them as well, either in this podcast episode or the next. So very exciting. Yep, absolutely, and we'll be all over the billboards in whether absolutely any of the major cities, so you won't be able to miss us. So exciting times for us. We'll catch you next week, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having me, everybody.